Hello, today I will be informing my audience about the pros and cons of becoming a vegetarian. I wanted to become a vegetarian because I loved animals and I felt like I was being a hypocrite because I was still eating meat. So I decided to take the plunge and cut meat from my diet. I knew little about what it meant to be a vegetarian, so I ended up not eating well and pretty much living off of bean burritos and ramen noodles. I was a vegetarian who did not like vegetables, and I became ill from the lack of protein. I had a threat of becoming anemic at my heels, and I dropped a lot of weight quickly. Maybe if I had known more on how to be a vegetarian in a healthy way, I would still be one today. Americans eat 52.3 pounds of beef, 57.4 pounds of chicken, 43.5 pounds of pork per person per year. I will inform my audience if it is healthy to become a vegetarian, and if so, how to do it in a healthy manner. Americans eat a lot of meat per person, and only 5% of Americans are vegetarians. Meat is recommended to sustain a healthy diet, so are vegetarians being helpful or hindering their own health? To an animal lover, becoming a vegetarian is a very attractive concept. A lot of people want to become a vegetarian but do not do a good amount of research on the subject and end up making themselves sick. In this section of the speech, I will talk about the positive side of becoming a vegetarian. I will be referring back to sources and I will be giving information from a girl who has been a vegetarian for 12 years. There can be a lot of advantages to becoming a vegetarian. Keeping your weight down, warding off diseases, and living longer are just a few. Vegetarian Time says you'll keep your weight down. The standard American diet is high in saturated fats and processed foods and low in plant-based food and complex carbohydrates. With there being pros to a person's health, Why Go Veg says that if a person becomes a vegetarian, it can help them ward off diseases. Eating a diet that is more plant-based helps a person live longer and healthier life. Some proof to a person living longer because they cut meat out of their diet is the Anakawaka of Japan. They live the longest of anyone in the world because they have a low-calorie diet of unrefined, complex carbohydrates, fiber-rich fruits and vegetables, and soy. A vegetarian diet can meet nutrition requirements and provide health benefits, which is why the Anakawaka of Japan have lived longer and healthier because of the meat cut out. According to the American Dietetic Association, a vegetarian diet can meet protein requirements, provide all essential amino acids, the building blocks of protein, and improve health. A vegetarian diet provides a more healthful form of iron than meat-based diet. From my interview with a girl named Haley Weissman, the girl who has been a vegetarian for 12 years, says that she tells people that it is much easier than people make it out to become a vegetarian, if you are truly committed. She stresses that a lot. If you are truly committed, you can be a vegetarian. It just takes a lot of work. Haley also says that it is not a diet, it is a way of living your life. Once a person looks at being a vegetarian as a way of life, a person can live without the regret of their decision and never be tempted to eat meat again. Haley also says that why she has stayed is more about the unethical ways that animals are killed for consumption. She does not like the way cattle are killed, chicken, or any kind of meat because they are killed in unethical ways. Another reason to cut meat from your diet comes from the book called Poisoned by Benedict. He says, in 1992, a 6-year-old girl was hospitalized with intense stomach pain. The doctors did not understand how she became so quickly. Later it was announced that the cause was E. coli. The meat was from a restaurant called Jack in the Box. So if you cut meat out of your diet, then you will not have the risk of having E. coli, which causes death, which is what happened to that 6-year-old girl. The pros of becoming a vegetarian are pretty strong, but there are still people that are on the edge about being one. Next, I will discuss some factors that would make a person think twice about changing their eating habits. Even to someone who is a vegetarian, it can still be difficult to change the way they eat. While there are pros to becoming a vegetarian, there can also be cons that a person needs to think about before making their decision. There can be a lot of reasons why a person would choose not to become a vegetarian. Looking on some sources, I will talk about some disadvantages about becoming a vegetarian. When researching and deciding whether to cut meat out of your diet or not, there are some disadvantages that people need to think about. To name a few would be that a person would have difficulty eating and getting protein. There can be a few health risks. Even for the girl who has been a vegetarian for 12 years says that it is difficult for her to get protein and it can be hard to cook and eat out. Vegetarian Pro Cons says that eating meat is not cruel or unethical, it is a part of the cycle of life. They also say that eating meat has been an essential part of human evolution for 2.3 million years. So really, is it harming animals if it's been done for that long, and humans have been doing it since they've been on the face of the earth? And they say that it's part of the circle of life, so is it really being harmful to animals? Tess Jones says that even though it is a smaller con, if a person becomes a vegetarian, your family and friends will have different eating habits than you. She says eating out as a vegetarian can be a real challenge, and this is something that you have to think about when becoming a vegetarian. If you are close with your family and friends and you eat with them a lot, they have to know that you are a vegetarian and your eating habits will be different from theirs and you will have a different plate of food than theirs. The interview with Haley Weissman, she also says, it can be really hard because I will order something with no meat and they mess up and have meat in it, or it doesn't list as meat, or the most frequent places cook everything with meat and then take it out and call it a vegetarian option. And this has not as good of a taste because they just take the meat out and it's kind of lackluster. She says that she has had a lot of close calls of eating meat because of restaurants having sloppiness. And restaurants usually geared towards meat eaters, as what Tess Jones says, so it can be really hard for them to have vegetarian options, and they are quite sloppy with this. With that, towards meat eaters, Tess Jones says that most restaurants are geared toward meat eaters, and vegetarian offerings are limited to meat dishes with the absence of meat, which is exactly what Haley says. They just are meat dishes, they just do not have meat in them, they just remove the meat. Jones also says that dinner engagements require explaining your eating preferences. And when eating with your friends, you need to make sure they understand your diet. She says that it can sometimes be awkward to politely remind your host that you are a vegetarian, which is why it is important to tell your host beforehand that you cannot eat meat, because you don't want to go to someone's house and they cooked meat and you say, sorry, I can't eat that, and then they have to find something to make for you on the spot. So make sure that you tell your host and your family and friends that you are a vegetarian before they serve the dinner to you. Vegetarians have to learn how to cook. Haley says that it is such a pain to make food, and part of the problem with staying healthy is it is difficult to be making food. She says that it's easy to slip into unhealthy patterns like eating carbs and sweets because those are the easiest things to make, and you have to make things that have vegetables in it which take longer time to prepare, which is another point I have made. The meals are good, they taste good, but they just take a while to prepare, and you have to cut that time into your diet. You have to make sure that is part of your life. All of the sources have good reasons for why they think that it is difficult or unhealthy to become a vegetarian. That does not mean you cannot combat these reasons and still become a vegetarian if that is what you believe is right for you. After hearing what I have to say, I want people to decide whether they want to become a vegetarian to help save the animals that each American eats per year per person, or for any other reason. There are a vast number of reasons why a person would make the choice to become a vegetarian. It is important that if you do make the decision to cut meat from your diet, that you are doing so in a healthy way. Otherwise, you can become anemic or have other health issues pertaining to a lack of protein. Know what you can and cannot eat when you go out and cook. If you are not committed to the diet without meat, keep meat in your diet. Just like being cautious of being a vegetarian, also be cautious if you are keeping meat in your diet. Make sure you are healthy about how much meat you eat, and eat meat that is cooked properly, so you do not run the risk of having E. coli or any other diseases. With all of the meat each American eats per person per year, if a few people cut back on meat or cut meat out entirely, there might be more food for other people in other countries who have little food.